Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, so we are once again doing breaches of the week, and we are going all over the planet. There has been so much stuff that has gone on this week. We are first going to start with Facebook. Now, I did a video on them, I want to say a few days ago or so, but it just came to light that basically third-party developers that Facebook had given essentially unrestricted access to into their backend had been taking data and putting it in their own databases for whatever data-driven purposes they wanted. A lot of them were using AWS. Now, researchers at UpGuard found literally hundreds of millions, if not more, usernames, passwords, and exposed pretty much everything due to these insecure developer databases. In one case, 540 million records were in a single database from a company in Mexico City that had basically taken this data from Facebook, and Facebook had let them do this. These researchers also found up to 100,000 databases for these various developers being hosted on AWS or Amazon Web Services, and a lot of them should not be publicly known. That is a massive, massive problem, and if you're on Facebook, please understand your data is exposed and out there in some way, shape, or form. Moving on, we're going to go to India now. Now, there's an Indian health agency that just exposed 12.5 million records on pregnant women in that country. Now, the Indian government agency basically had a misconfigured MongoDB database where they were storing this information, and a researcher found this on March 7th, basically during a regular audit of the Binary Edge search engine. So if you are in India and you are pregnant, heads up, your personal information may have been exposed to the world. Moving on, we're going to keep on going, and we're heading to Germany. Now, a massive German drug maker, Bayer, basically said it was a victim of a cyber attack that appears to have originated with Chinese hackers. Now, this is according to German media. Investigators are still examining all of this, but they're saying that they used the WinT malware system, which basically ties it back to Chinese hackers, and that is a specific group called Wicked Panda. They're an APT, or Advanced Persistent Threat. Now, an investigation, as I said, is still underway, but the initial probe found, and I quote, no evidence of data theft at Bayer, and so we'll see where that goes. But they did find that they had a breach. Moving on, we're actually going to be heading to Mar-a-Lago. This is AKA the Winter White House, AKA a golf course owned by President Donald Trump. I did a video on this one a few days ago as well. A 32-year-old Chinese national named Yujing Zhang basically showed up, and due to a perceived language barrier, was able to bypass the first layer of Secret Service security, got to reception before she was caught, and when they caught her, they found out there really wasn't a language barrier. She said she was there to go to the pool, yet had no swim apparel or a towel even, and what they found were 4 cell phones, a laptop, an external hard drive, and a thumb drive that had insertable malware on it. And so when they tested the device, they literally found that she could have plugged this in anywhere. And so that is a presidential data breach here in the United States. Fortunately, it was shut down early. Hopefully no damage was done. Next, we're going to be moving on to South Korea, and there's a company there called BitHum or BitThum, something like that, or Bythum. I'm not sure how it is exactly pronounced, but they are a cryptocurrency exchange, and hackers stole roughly $19 million in U.S. currency of cryptocurrency from the exchange. So if you are using them, heads up on that, you might have just lost a whole bunch of money. Moving on, we're going to be going to Georgia Tech. This is a university. They just revealed a data breach of 1.3 million records exposed, and basically it's a security failure issue due to a web application that was vulnerable to outside entry. So in other words, hackers were able to exploit part of Georgia Tech's web presence, get in, and steal 1.3 million records. So if you're related to Georgia Tech in some way, heads up. Next, we're going to be talking about a company called Earl Enterprises. Now, if you don't know who they are, they own Planet Hollywood. They also own another restaurant called Buca de Beppo, which I actually think I've been to here in the Chicagoland area. They basically came out and said that they have suffered a payment card breach. In other words, a PCI compliance breach of credit cards, and 2 million credit cards have been found on the dark web, and they've been available there for weeks. This is according to Avast Security. And so here we are. If you've eaten at a Planet Hollywood or Buca de Beppo or anything else owned by Earl Enterprises, heads up, their point of sale systems got hit. Moving on, we're actually going to be talking about Apple. Now, Here's the interesting thing. A new type of malware is believed to have infected and stolen the login credentials for Apple systems on iPhones for up to 225,000 iPhone users. Now, this compromise is probably one of the largest compromises of Apple iPhones, and it is done by a malware called KeyRaider. Now, what's interesting about this is that this only impacts Apple iPhone users that have jailbroken their phones, meaning they have installed software and removed a lot of the restrictions that Apple or other cellular carriers have put on their iPhone, and then they can go ahead and download and install other things that they can't typically get in the iPhone store or the App Store. And so basically malware, they were downloading what they thought were legitimate apps that had this malware on it that was able to do things like rip out credentials, rip out secure keys for SSL and a whole bunch of other stuff. And so if you have a jailbroken iPhone, heads up, you might be one of 225,000 people that have now been affected by KeyRaider. And finally, we're going to be talking about the IRS, the U.S. government organization everybody loves to hate. Now, their commissioner, Josh Koskinen, testified before the Senate Finance Committee that they just had a data breach. Now, this data breach comes from the Data Retrieval Tool, or DRT, and this basically allowed hackers to gain access to personal information on 100,000 U.S. students who are filing tax returns and other things. Now, this tool that they hit is for the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA. Now, the identity thieves were able to steal this information on these 100,000 students, and they did what most identity theft hackers do. They started getting loans. They started taking out identity theft, and they were able to get roughly $30 million in fraudulent loans based off of these 100,000 students, which obviously is a complete mess for those 100,000 students, not to mention lending institutions and the IRS itself. Now, here's the interesting thing about this and why it's our very last thing for the day. Most of these fraudulent tax returns in question were filed in January, but here's the thing. This is months after the IRS actually realized that the tool posed a problem. Koskinen, their commissioner, says he was alerted to the problem in September, but students were continuing to use the tool until it was taken down in March of this year. So only like a week or so ago did this thing come down. That's a serious problem, and that is government efficiency for you. Those are your data breaches of the week. Were you affected? Let me know. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.